Hello, Recon 87 and welcome back to Combat Mission Cold War, and today we're going to be kicking off a brand new scenario and we're going to be having a look at the Czechmate battle. So we are playing as the Russians. The scenario is that it is the 5th of June 1982. We are elements of the 18th Motor Division. We are situated on the Czech border west of Prague and northeast of Nuremberg. Our main division's task has been to drive on Nuremberg, and the main attack is heading in that direction towards Auersberg. We, meanwhile, have been given a small force with which to recon some additional routes to see if we can't find a way of outflanking the Americans. And our forces which we have are elements of the 275th Motor Guards, the 360th Tank Regiment, and the 45th Independent Recon and Radio Battalion. So let's take a look at what they look like. So you can see our mechanised infantry here. So we've got 6 BTRs, so that's kind of 2 platoons worth. The theory being that while some of the mechanised infantry will be issued with BMPs, the best of the technology and equipment will be going to the main attack, and as a kind of a side affair, we get the leftovers. So that's why we end up with these BTRs. In terms of armament, BTRs got kind of 2 heavy machine guns, one heavier 14.5mm, and then a kind of standard 7.62, both mounted in the turret here. The troops inside them, fairly standard 7-man Russian squad with RPGs for anti-tank elements. Interesting enough, only 1 out of the 3 squads has got a designated marksman, so much less of any kind of range superiority from an infantry perspective compared to what we were looking at, for example, in the Direction Found campaign. So that's my 2 platoons of infantry. Then obviously we have got 4 supporting tanks. These are T-62s, again the obviously older tanks, but the theory being that the nice new shiny ones are all part of that main attack, and we're getting a little bit of the dregs. So these guys do have a 115mm main gun, which is the U-5TS, if that's the kind of thing you're interested in. No ATGMs, they do carry HE heat and the Sabo rounds. In addition, they've got 2 machine guns, so coaxially mounted 7.62, as well as this heavier 12.7mm on top. And finally, we've got our recon elements, which consists of 3 BRDM2s, and these are armed identically to the BTRs, so the 14.5 and 7.62mm machine guns. And that's it, and that's all the on-map and off-map forces we have at the start of the mission. So we've got no artillery and no air support to begin with. The theory being that those are all supporting the main thrust. As you can get the gist of it now. But we will get some additional support later. So we'll have some additional mechanised infantry after about 15 minutes, as well as some additional tanks. And after 25 minutes, we will get 1 anti-tank platoon. In terms of artillery, we do get a little bit of support. So after 15 minutes, we'll get access to a 120mm mortar battery, but fairly light on the support side. So that is our forces. What do we think we are up against? Well, defending the Czech border is the 2nd Armoured Cavalry Regiment from the Americans. So we are not sure exactly which elements of it we're going to be facing, as it's spread all along the Czech border, and we're only attacking a small part of it. But we are likely to see either kind of M113 APCs or potentially M3 Bradley IFEs, obviously with squads of infantry attached. There will be some elements of tank support, some variants of the M60. We'll have to wait and see exactly what we're up against. And probably most concerning will be there's maybe anti-tank elements mixed in with that. So either man-portable tool launchers or potentially some vehicular ones. Okay, so that's our forces, what we vaguely know that we're up against. What is the overall objective? Well, we have 4 objectives here. So the first, as we head down this valley, is this bridge crossing, and that is a touch objective, so for 400 points. The second is the town of Neuhaus ad Egger. We'll just call it Neuhaus. And that's occupy, and that's worth 500 points. We then get up to 400 points for destroying the enemy, and a bonus 200 points for sustaining less than 25% casualties. Now this is quite a large map, but as you can see from kind of the main features are a lot of hills, which isn't the end of the world either way, but a lot of heavily forested areas. And as a a fully mechanized force, that's problematic. That really restricts my avenues of advance. And if I just kill off the trees a little minute, you can see that actually in reality, down this valley, there are two primary routes, and that's about it. We've got one on the north side of the river, which heads down to the bridge itself. Obviously this road kind of breaks off and goes over to nowhere. Alternatively, we can kind of push across the river. There's a tiny track here, which then breaks up onto a second road, and that does sweep along this western edge and round to the western side. Southern edge, and round to the southern side of the town. And that is it. And the concern with that is if we only have two avenues of attack, then from a defender's perspective, they kind of know where we're coming. So if we put the trees back on again, and we take a look at things from the Americans' perspective. So let's start by, say, jumping into this town here. And have a look. So on the assumption that they know we're coming. Well, so what can we expect? Well, so there's going to be some elements of resistance around the bridge. I suspect they're all on this side of the bridge. I don't think we're going to have isolated elements up here. Could be wrong, but that's my initial impression. But they're definitely going to have forces in and around this bridge, and probably kind of scattered up towards the town itself. The bit that probably does concern me is if we come all the way down towards the ground level. And here is a great example, is the line of sight they have towards that road approach to the bridge. Let me just zoom in and you'll see. So you go. So if they sit a tank or a ATGM asset just on this edge of town, they've got a fantastic sight line into our approach towards that bridge. Which is, could cause a lot of problems. We really have to be careful about how we approach this. Similarly, so that's the and I would expect them to have forces garrisoned town, so that's a likely spot for them to have some kind of defences. Other possibilities is if they are slightly further away. Let me play around the camera a little bit. And they have something set up on this hill somewhere. So if I can pop through as the trees vanish. So actually somewhere near this clearing or on the edge of these trees, where again you can see, just check the sight lines, fantastic view right down to that approach to the road. So those things have me concerned because we have limited avenues of approach, and therefore that's obvious places for the defence to concentrate where they are attacking. So come out of all that, we can swing around, and then the questions being, so what are we going to do? Well, we do have an hour and a half, which is quite a long time. The obviously theory behind the briefing was that we should recon the enemy positions and then engage where we find them weakest. And so to that effect, I'm going to obviously try and push up and get some eyes before I really commit anything. With the recon forces, I do want to try and send one towards the bridgehead to see what we can see. Probably going to have to spend most of my time skirting this wooded edge to try and hide from those long sight lines we're looking at. And then we should be able to nip across on the road and round. The second one I want to send down into this position to potentially come around here, although that's, we'll have to check sight lines from the hill and the town, or alternatively get some eyes where we can confirm there's no one there. I'm probably going to send 2 squads of initial infantry in their BTRs, again down here, use amphibious capability, and then drop off the troops and try and push in through this kind of cliff edge. Again, just to get some eyes. We could potentially, if there's armor assets really close by, also we can engage them with our RPGs. It depends, we might just have to pull back. With the final BTR from that platoon, I'd like to get him over in this direction. So there's a road that flows through here. To as close as we can to the cliff over here. So if we kill the trees again, we'll see the road at the bottom of the screen. If CM wants to play ball. Right, minor hiccup. Yeah, so get them along to this road, probably dismount on foot, and then head through this heavily wooded area, which now has no trees, out towards this cliff line, where again they've got some fantastic sight lines into the town over the valley, and probably bring my platoon leader over here so he can call down the mortar assets when we actually get that support. As you see, when I put the trees back on, you can come and pop out one of these cliff sections and have pretty good sight lines. Meanwhile, that leaves one other recon vehicle, which I'm going to try and send over on this southern side of the river. See, this track here does not look great. It's not very wide, but I'm going to see if I can't sneak my BRDM through it and up onto the road. And potentially come in behind, because that would be really useful if we could send some, probably that entire second platoon of infantry up this direction to, again, potentially flank the bridge, get some additional information about American forces. I don't think I'm going to get any tanks up here. It certainly doesn't look amenable to that kind of heavy armoured movement, but we could always give it a go. We'll see how B&M goes on first. And that's it. So by and large, I'm going to keep my tanks back initially, just to get a better lie of the land, and then we shall see where we go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a cut in. I'm going to issue my initial orders, and I'm probably going to run for the first few minutes, just until we get any kind of spots or contacts, and then I'll bring you guys back and we can talk about what we found. Before I do that, as I forgot to mention it, there was one thing I want to mention, was that I had been looking at some mods for this. So those of you familiar with Combat Mission games will know there's a fantastic modding community out there that do a lot of very good kind of graphical and sound updates, as well as actually some own-made scenarios and campaigns. Unsurprisingly, given this is a very new game, there's not huge amounts of mods out there at the minute, but I have picked up two. So the first is a high-quality sound mod. Very similar to the HQS mod I've used in my Normandy ones, but obviously revamped for modern combat. And the second is the icons. I've changed these to NATO floating icons rather than the default ones. Just see how that goes. I'll stick links to them both in the description below, so you can check them out for yourself. But anyway, I will now disappear off and hopefully bring you guys back when we've got some first contact. So I haven't been gone too long, just over a minute in, although we have not had any firm contacts of any Americans. We have had this occur. So what I suspect has happened was that one of our BRDMs, when we had the two set up, they essentially started either side of this wooded area. And had one come around this way, and had one come up here and dive across this chap here. And what I think that is we had identified a potential ATGM position up on this hill, which, as you can see, actually they've got pretty good sight lines of this little patch of ground here, which the BRDM did have to transverse. Although I had him on a fast order, I should say, to make sure he got over here as quickly as possible. We hope they wouldn't have time to identify, spot, and maintain contact on the target. So these missiles are all line of sight, so the gunner has to keep his crosshairs on the target to guide the missile in. So I suspect what has happened is that they've identified it, they've launched a missile, but before the missile is hit, he's managed to duck down to this tree line. And then, as you see, the line of sight is now broken to that hill position, which has then caused essentially the missile to veer off course, because there's now no target it's aiming at, and it's ended up exploding over here. That was the only one we didn't get any other sight or a sound of it or of any other explosions, but I suspect that's what's happened. And then, as this is the case, that would then confirm, because from this position you can't see any of the town, there is indeed ATGM assets here. That's not to say there aren't also some located on that ridge in the town, but I would say I'm pretty confident there's something up here just launching missiles at us. Aside from that, so we'll continue to proceed as we were before, also with the aim of getting as far down the valley as we can without exposing ourselves to any more line of sight from there, and trying to get in a position where we can start doing some recon of our own. At the minute it feels a little bit like we're the ones being hunted, but hopefully we can turn the table on that. So we're 4 minutes into mission at the moment. Again, I've had no firm contacts of the Americans, just going to continue to push up this valley, trying to stay in cover as much as I can. But we have our other recon vehicles just pushing up on the south side of the river here to get up onto that track. Seems to be finding a way through the trees, which is good. However, it turns out that the Americans have found me first, so as soon as I kicked off the minute this happened, our BRDM getting wrecked by heavy caliber machine gun fire somewhere up here. So I suspect that it's a Bradley, essentially, what I'm going to say. Obviously, it's definitely not 50 cal. If it was something heavier armoured, you would expect a kind of high explosive round. So given it's a heavy caliber machine gun, I'm going to say Bradley. Can't remember off the top of my head exactly what armament Bradley has, but that is what my money's on. In terms of where it might be, well, actually, even as I just raise the height, there's a very potential looking clearing just here, which is certainly in the direction where the rounds were coming from, somewhere up here, and maybe where they've parked an infantry vehicle, potentially a squad of troops in and amongst it. Is there roads and things back here? I knew there was someone higher up. Indeed there is. Let me get some lollipop sticks back so we can have a look at this little clearing of ours. Okay. Wow, look at that. So there's a path from this road track down to this clearing. So, not for sure. Could be somewhere else. They could, maybe have weaved in through the trees to get an angle, but that's looking pretty pretty likely. And although, as I say that now, not one I spotted during my initial kind of analysis. I wasn't expecting the Americans to have anything kind of on this side. And it's a good job. They've done well. Good sight ranges down into essentially the road I have to go through. So that is causing me a bit of a problem. Now, given that it's, I think it's badly nothing heavier, I think the plan will be to try and get some of my tank assets in a position where they can get sight on that area, and hopefully we can kind of put a round into it. And unfortunately, that wasn't all that happened in this minute. Let me just play the rest of it. So apart from that, I felt I was in a pretty safe position, using the kind of tree line to cover myself from the suspected tow position. And then this happened, which I was pretty surprised about, to be brutally honest. I mean, if you come back here and look where this guy's sitting, I mean, I suppose you can see a tiny little bit. Maybe that's enough. Maybe this is where they're sitting. But even then, the sightline is terrible. I'm amazed they managed to spot this guy at whatever distance is, and keep contact long enough to get around into him. So I'm feeling a little bit aggrieved about this, and it sucks to lose an entire squad of infantry in one go. There's 9 brave Soviet souls lost. It's also making me pretty nervous about bringing up the remainder of my vehicle assets, but don't have a huge amount of choice. I need to get up into here relatively quickly. So I can start getting some better eyes on here, so I can try and eliminate this position before my reinforcements turn up. So I think this one, the BRDM kill, entirely justified. That's fair. They got the drop on me. That wasn't expecting it. This one, where I knew the enemy position and I felt I'd done enough to cover myself from it, I'm a little bit annoyed by. But that's the way it goes sometime. So, plan of attack will be to bring the tanks up, and I'm going to have to just keep really hugging this tree line to make sure we don't eat a missile on the way in. And then probably try and bring them somewhere over here, where potentially we can get sight lines up to that clearing. The other thing I'll probably do is get my infantry out, see if they can spot. I don't think the angle of the hillside is going to make that particularly useful, but we'll give it a go. So what I'll do is then I'll cut away, and then, because I think it'll probably take me a minute or two to get everything in position, I'm going to bring you back when we are ready to try and make that spot. Okay, so I was just about ready. Actually, I was going to bring you guys in when I push the button, because I've got some couple of tanks down here, and I was just going to get them to essentially face where we thought the Americans might be, and reverse to where we knew there was a sight line, so kind of over this direction. However, I did notice just at the very tail end of the last minute, this puffs of white smoke over here. I don't know how well that'll show up in the video. There, look. So, it would seem that they have spotted my tanks before I have spotted them, and obviously popped smoke in defence and probably reversed off the way, which is unfortunate, because obviously we've not been able to take them out. It's also pretty uncomfortable if we don't get the spot and we don't eliminate this vehicle, that we've left this threat sitting in our sight. So we're really going to have to think about how we deal with that. Now, there's not really many places for him to go. He could, I mean, to be honest, he can get up onto this road, sure, and he could head all the way back down to town, I suppose, to completely reposition. Or they may just keep their heads down for 5-10 minutes and then pop back out there, cause me a lot more grief. So we shall see. I'm still going to pull the tanks back, and in fact I decided that because we know he's there and we're not quite sure what's going to happen, I'm going to bring one of the tanks all the way up here, to give better kind of eyesight onto the side of this hill here. I'm using them in reverse so we can kind of keep our better armour forward facing, just in case we do decide to pick a fight with us. But since you guys are here, why don't we stay for this minute, and we'll see if we can't actually get a spot, or at least a, you know, possible contact. So the frustrating thing is I've lost 2 vehicles thus far, and I haven't even had a hint of enemy. Obviously that's a bit of a giveaway, so we know they're there. But yeah, it would be nice to get a bit more than that. The other bit, as you can see, so I've got my other BRDM up on the road here, and I'm bringing the 2nd infantry platoon. So good access roads to get in behind some of the potential American positions. Slightly concerned with infantry, you know, if they're hiding along the roadway, they could easily kind of take out a vehicle, so I may have to actually get some of the guys on foot to clear out in advance. As it stands, pretty quiet. On the plus side, if he's not there, obviously they can't take out any of our vehicles kind of heading across this gap, so at least frees it up to continue our push on the bridge. And if we leave one of our tanks kind of in overwatch, then if they do try and reappear, we should be able to hopefully make the spot. But yeah, frustratingly quiet. Okay, so in terms of moves forward, let's say I'll bring him up onto this position of hill. I'm going to leave a tank there for now. Our 1 recon vehicle is out, but I am going to continue to push. I do really want to get a recon position up here, but I'm not conscious now that I'm only down to 2 infantry squads. And sending 1 squad over here seems a little bit underwhelming in terms of firepower. So, but I really want to get that artillery position. Well, having said that, out on this ridge line, we know our first target's going to be here, so maybe we do that. We're almost 10 minutes in. It's going to be 15 before we get our artillery. We've got our first target, so what we could do is we could even mobilise one of the HQ teams from the reinforcements we get after 15 minutes, and maybe send them up with that ridge line if we want a different view, and concentrate these 2 infantry squads plus, well, hold really back obviously, to give us our first peek over here and see what we're up against. But it is pretty challenging, because we've somehow got to put some force down on this bridge area without exposing any of our vehicles to a line of sight from here, which is essentially most of it. Yeah, interesting, challenging, but we'll see where we go. So I will probably, I'll throw another cut, I'll push on. If we do get any contacts, again, I'll bring you guys back. And then once we actually start getting to the thick of it, we'll run through as per we did on the previous missions. Okay, I'll see you shortly. So another few minutes down the road and things have been mercifully quiet. So we've managed to push our remaining 2 squads into position and start dismounting from their BTRs to try and push up into this hillside. The rest of our tanks fairly uneventfully have parked themselves in there for now. No other spots or sounds from our tanks doing a little bit of overwatch on this hillside. See if we can't see where that suspected Bradley ended up. But whole lot of nothing. On this side, it's been slow going getting our BTRs up onto the road, but we have managed it. I was coming down this road with my BRDM. We were pushing on, and as I said before, I was slightly nervous about ambushes from infantry and other such things, and I did notice we were coming up to essentially a ridge or a peak or whatever you want to call it, after which there was a nice long sight line down here. And that made me tremendously nervous, so I dismounted some infantry and sent them to try and maybe do a little bit of scouting ahead, and it turns out it was a very good decision on my part, because this happened to my infantry. Or maybe it's just gone quiet again. Hang on, I was too far back. There we go. Thankfully no one was hurt, but obviously there's some vehicle sitting down there, caught sight of us and took some pot shots. And yeah, and that would have chewed up, I suspect would have chewed up my BRDMs. They're not particularly heavily armoured. I think it's just a few millimetres, I think it's just protection against small arms fire. And yeah, towards the end we finally got our first probable contact, which should pop up any second now. There you go. Oh. And has vanished again. Essentially it was that vehicle. We got a question mark on that. Oh, it's still there. Lose the trees for a minute, you'll be able to see it a bit better. There we go. We think there is a vehicle hiding back here, which makes sense because that's some large caliber machine guns just shooting at our guys. Not 100% sure how we're going to deal with this actually. I mean, probably the best thing to do would be try and close in with infantry. I certainly can't parade down the road with the vehicles I've got. I think they would potentially get pretty chewed up, and I'm not sure if we're going to get in a position where we have any line of sight from our tanks on that position. Especially if they are tucked in this road here, just the other side of this hill, then that's a pretty good defensive position. We might have to go marauding in with some of our troops. So yes, I think what we'll do is continue to push these guys through on foot. See if we can't get a bit better of a spot. But see, not ideal at sending infantry against a mechanised target. If they get caught in machine gun hairs, could take a few casualties, but thankfully nothing thus far. Meanwhile, we should be getting some of our first reinforcements in the next couple of minutes. So again, I'm just going to push these guys hopefully up onto the ridgeline to have a bit of a view as to what is here, as well as getting my HQ unit out onto this cliff edge where we can call down a mortar strike on that suspected toll position. And that's about it, but I did want to bring out just to say we had found something. It's not the IFE we're looking for, but there is one there, and we're going to have to devise ourselves a plan as to how to deal with that. Potentially it might have been better to bring at least one of the BTRs in here and march in on foot, but it's all very good in hindsight. So I think we'll continue to try and push some of these guys through the woods. Conscious of how long that's going to take, but I don't think we have much of an option. Like I say, I think charging in with vehicles is going to end pretty poorly. But as per last time, I will put another cut in. I'll let our guys hopefully get some spotting positions, and then with any luck we will end the episode with a good idea of at least what the Americans have around the bridge. So we're now just about 17 minutes into the mission. We have had some substantial reinforcements, which I'll look at in a moment, but more importantly we have had our first confirmed contact with American, although it is very brief. We do unfortunately move slightly and lose contact, but yeah, we have found some of their armour. So I suspected it's a pattern. Having looked at the silhouettes versus the manual, it looks to be an M60A3 pattern, so a bit of an upgrade. think so. That's the most modern version of the Pact before the switch over to Abrams. Although there is, even within that, there are some variants with upgraded thermal sight, which you may or may not have. But it was nice to have that first confirmed contact. I will let the last 4 seconds of this minute run out, and then we'll talk about our fairly hefty reinforcements which we've had in as well. And we just lose them at the end. Let's just go into command phase. So yeah, look at that large chunk of red icons. So we did it well, so we knew they was coming. So the rest of our tank company is here. So that's another 2 platoons of T-62s. There and there. In addition, we've got rest of our mechanized infantry. So that's 3 platoons, I think, unless I'm missing someone somewhere. 1, 2, and 3. Oh no, that's my manpad. All these double clicks are not being my friends. Yes, we have 1, 2, 3 infantry, plus we have, yeah, we floating icons in the right place. Hard to see. Here we go. Some anti-air. Also in BTRs, so we've got quite a lot of them actually. Anti-air and anti-tanks is my specialist support teams. Okay. Yep, some anti-air assets, some anti-tank tools we'll have to get set up. And we also have 2 anti-air, self-propelled anti-aircraft guns as well. So that's good to renal defence, but I suspect, given we've just given us all this, that the Americans are going to have some air power buzzing around. And the real question is, how are we going to effectively use them? We still have the tools to deal with up on this ridgeline, so simply kind of trying to push all these forces forward is not going to end very well. I'm glad we've now got a bit of a holding here. And certainly I want to try and push some more infantry this way, so there's probably some of my anti-tank assets, because I think up in this ridgeline would be a great place to have them, especially if we've found a tank we can spot. And finally, we should now be in a position, he says hopefully, to actually drop some mortars on that suspected tow position. Let's just check. He might not be quite out. Oh, ish. Oh, he's not too bad. Okay, so let's get that locked in now. How much do I want to... I don't know exactly where they are. Well, if in doubt. Although I could potentially drop a whole lot onto that suspected IFE position as well, which might be a good use of a few batteries. So I think they are sitting in this ridgeline. Could be wrong, so let's give ourselves a reasonable target. 100 meters that we just want to pepper. Let's use all of them. Medium is fine. Let's go for... I'm actually going to go for long. And the reason I'm going to do that is once these start falling, it'll also allow me to use that period to push all my vehicles forward. And even if we don't take out the assets that are here, we're going to be causing them enough disruption that they're not going to be able to fire at us. Please do that immediately. It's still a 10-minute delay actually. That's quite unpleasant. So it's going to start really eating into our time for us to move the rest of our assets forward. But yeah, it's a really, really interesting scenario, this one, and because we are so hemmed in terms of our available routes. It's a huge map, but yet most of the area is unavailable to us. But yeah, really interesting. But it is drawing towards the end of the episode. So this is a bizarre starter where we're going to have gone through and not actually inflicted a single casualty upon the Americans, or really, beyond a brief spot, seen any of them, but have lost a couple ourselves. I think we're in an okay position. This roadblock's a bit infuriating, so we're going to have to try and deal with that if we do want to open up this route for some more of our infantry forces to kind of sweep through. Otherwise, like I said, I think it would be good to set up an anti-tank asset on this hill, and probably set up something else over in this direction as well. Potentially we could send an anti-tank team along with some kind of HQ team to that position we talked about earlier on this cliff, which gives you great lines of sight over here. My only kind of annoying concern is making sure we don't spend too much time in our initial setup. Well, we still have an hour and 15 left. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave it there for this one. So a bit of a kind of So a bit of an odd starting episode to scenario. I think things are really going to heat up next time. So I do hope you did enjoy this one. And as ever, I'll catch you in my next one.